Hello everyone. Today we will learn about the Raspberry Pi. Today we will see the introduction to Raspberry Pi. So what is Raspberry Pi? So Raspberry Pi is a low cost, low power consumption, credit card size single board computer. So it is the Raspberry Pi. The size of the Raspberry Pi is equal to the credit card, and it is a single board computer. Means on single board you can use computer facilities. So what you can do with Raspberry Pi? With Raspberry Pi you can do IoT, you can do home automation, you can do robotics, you can do security system, and also you can use Raspberry Pi as a portable PC and many more. So what is the history of Raspberry Pi? It is developed in the United Kingdom by the Raspberry Pi Foundation in the association with Broadcom. The Raspberry Pi project originally leaned toward the promotion of teaching basic computer science in school and even developing countries. The price of the Raspberry Pi board is less than $50, and the complete setup is less than $100, in which complete setup you will get monitor, keyboard, mouse, everything that are related to computer. So there are some Raspberry Pi models is available. In 2012 the Raspberry Pi 1 is launched. In 2015 Raspberry Pi 2 is launched. In 2016 Raspberry Pi 3 is launched, and in 2019 Raspberry Pi 4 is launched. So there are some differences in each and every board. So if we say in Raspberry Pi 1 there are total 4 model B, model A, model B plus, and model A plus. So in this Raspberry Pi 1 the SoC, the system on chip, is BCM2835, and here there is a Ethernet is available in Raspberry Pi B. In Raspberry Pi 1A there is no Ethernet is not available. In Raspberry Pi 1B plus model there is Ethernet is available. In A plus there is Ethernet is not available. So in Raspberry Pi 1 there is no Wi-Fi. There are total 26 GPIO pins, and it is now discontinuous. The Raspberry Pi 1 is not available right now. And in Raspberry Pi 1 the processor is ARM11 processor. Now come to the next is Raspberry Pi 2. In Raspberry Pi 2 the model is only model B. So in model B there is RAM is 1 GB, there is no Wi-Fi. Yes, there is a Ethernet available, but the SoC is BCM2836. In Raspberry Pi 1 there is SoC is BCM2835, but in Raspberry Pi 2 there is BCM2836. In the processor is ARM Cortex A7 in Raspberry Pi 2. Now come to the next is Raspberry Pi 3. This is the most popular board, we can say. In Raspberry Pi 3 there are three models: model B, model B plus, and model A plus. So if we compare these three models, if we see in the RAM is 1 GB in B. In B plus there is also 1 GB. In A plus there is 512 MB RAM. Yes, in these are the first board. In this there is a Wi-Fi is available, and it is the total 40 GPIOs, and it is released in 2016. The model B is released in 2016. If we see what the processor is ARM Cortex A53. Now this is the latest one, Raspberry Pi 4. There are two model B and model 400. It is like a keyboard. There is all the processor, all the board is already inside it. You have to connect only the monitor. So if we compare this board will come with variety of memories. There are 1 GB, 2 GB, 4 GB, 8 GB variant are there in Raspberry Pi B model, and there is also Wi-Fi is available. There is dual band Wi-Fi. There is high speed Ethernet is available. This board released in 2019. And another board is Raspberry Pi model 400. It is released in 2020. So now the processor is ARM Cortex A72 in Raspberry Pi 4. So now this is the historical journey. Raspberry Pi 1 is released in 2012, which started Model B. In 2013, the Model A, Raspberry Pi 1A, Model A. In 2014, the Raspberry Pi 1 Model B Plus is launched. Similarly, in same year, Raspberry Pi 1 Model A Plus is also launched. Now, same year in 2014, Raspberry Pi 1 Compute model is launched. It is one of the cheaper model, we can say. Now come to Raspberry Pi 2. It is launched in 2015. After 3 years of Raspberry Pi 1, Raspberry Pi 2 is launched, or only model B is available. Now in 2016, Raspberry Pi 3 model B is launched. This is board with Wi-Fi facility. Now in 2017, this is a compute model. In 2018, model A plus and B plus is launched, Raspberry Pi 3. Now in 2019, they launched the Raspberry Pi 4 model B with high speed. There are dual high speed Ethernet and also dual band Wi-Fi is there. Means 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz supported in this Raspberry Pi 4. So now if we compare in Raspberry Pi 2, 3, there is 1 GB RAM. But in Raspberry Pi 4, there are multiple options. 1 GB RAM, 2 GB RAM, 4 GB RAM, 8 GB RAM is available. You can purchase a board according to amount of RAM. If you require more RAM, you can purchase 8 GB RAM model. Okay, so in Raspberry Pi 2, 3, it is powered by micro USB cable, and Raspberry Pi 4 is powered by Type C USB cable. This is the comparison between Raspberry Pi 2, 3 and Raspberry Pi 4. Similarly, this is the comparison between the Raspberry Pi 4 and 3. So first one is the BCM2711 SoC. Here is the BCM2837. Here is a ARM Cortex A72 processor. Here is ARM Cortex A53. Also the same, there are two USBs 3.0 and two USB 2.0 in Raspberry Pi 4. In Raspberry Pi 3, all 4 USBs 2.0. There is also BLE shield is there, and 5.0 Bluetooth. Here is 4.2 and BLE. There are 40 pins, same operating system we can use. So now we are discussing the latest one, the Raspberry Pi 4. The Raspberry Pi 4 relies on Broadcom BCM2711 quad-core Cortex A72 64-bit SoC with 1.5 GHz system on chip. There are choice of RAM. You can choose 1 GB, 2 GB, 4 GB, 8 GB version. There are type USB-C power supply. There are two micro HDMI ports with 4K display supported, two USB 3.0 and two USB 2.0, and there is a gigabit Ethernet speed is there. So this is the RAM. You can choose the RAM according to your requirement. So see here, this is the processor, Broadcom BCM2711. In this there is the ARM Cortex A72. This is the USB controller is there, and there is also the Ethernet controller would support gigabit speed. Now if we see what are onto the boards in Raspberry Pi 4, there are 40 pin general purpose input output header. There is power over Ethernet header is there, gigabit Ethernet port. There are two USB 3.0 port, 2 port USB 2.0. There are 4 port stereo audio output. There are 2 lane MIPI CI's camera port. This is the camera port. 2 micro HDMI ports, USB-C power supply. There are 2 lane MIPI DSI display port, micro SD card on the back side, and also there are dual band wireless Wi-Fi is there, and Bluetooth 5.0 is supported. If we see the GPIO pin, there are 40 GPIO pins. Okay, total. That in that there are 26 input output pin, 2 5-volt pin, 2 3.3 volt pin, and 7 ground pins. So these are the supply pin. Pin number 2, this is the numbering like this. This is the pin number 2, and pin number 4, that is the 5 volt pin. This is the pin number 2 and 4. It is like 1 2 3 4. So 2 and 4 is the we can say this is the 5 volt pin. 3.3 volt pin number 1 and 17, that is the pin number 3.3 volt pin. And there are 7 ground pin number 6 9 14 20 25 30 34 and 39. So there are Raspberry Pi total 28 GPIO pin, GPIO 0 to GPIO 27, and these are the pin numbers. Okay, now this is the basic setup of Raspberry Pi. For basic setup, you need a keyboard, you need a mouse, you need a minimum 8 GB micro SD card, you need a power adapter with USB type C cable, memory card reader you require, you need a laptop, also some software you require, that is the IP scanner you require putty, and putty is a software with SSH supported, and there is also you need VNC viewer also. So these are the some hardware and software you required for Raspberry Pi. So now come to the operating system of Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi needs an operating system to work. So there is a official supported OS, that is the Raspberry Pi OS. Previously it is called Raspbian. So this is the Raspberry Pi OS you have to install into the memory card. And also some third party OS like Ubuntu, like Manjaro Linux, RISC OS Pi and Kali Linux. So these are the some third party OS you can install onto the Raspberry Pi. So thank you guys. This is the introduction about the Raspberry Pi.